So The Last of Us Part 2, it's a popular video game right now, and if you don't know, there's a lot of controversy behind it. There's a lot of mixed reviews coming out, and people are kind of upset about it for a number of different reasons. And the reason I'm bringing up a video game on this channel is because the issues surrounding it have to do with LGBTQ, trans, all that different stuff, and people are upset on both sides. Now, I want to start with the right. We'll start here. So the issue that many people on the right took with this was that it was a game that, first off, part one, people loved and adored. Great story. They liked the characters. They liked everything about it. They get this second game, and from the reviews I've read from people on the right, a lot of people were complaining before it came out and right when it came out that it was full of these super woke messages. They just shoved LGBTQ in your face the whole time, and it was preaching at you the entire time about these topics. And you know how these TV shows do, right? In movies, a lot of times the characters just can't be what they are. They have to really emphasize the point and say it over and over and over until it wears you out, and you're like, I really don't care what that person does, who they like, or what they want to do with their life and themselves. Just let them be them. But no, usually these have to be messages and, preach a meaning at you the entire time. So having that in mind, the way our culture does that with a lot of media, people saw these leaks and information about this game and assumed the same thing was happening. For instance, the main character of the game in The Last of Us 2, Ellie is a lesbian. There's a bisexual character. There was reports of the main antagonist of the game being a trans person, which turns out was not true. It just turns out she's a really, really, really muscular woman, referred to in the game as, I quote, built like an ox. But people mistaked her for trans. But there actually is a trans character in the game, and people are upset about that too, so it gets really confusing. To address those issues in this game, I went through the whole thing just to check. I want to double check all these people's reviews. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely pushy on the woke message the entire time and 1 being not at all, I would say it was around a 3. It really wasn't that heavy-handed with it. You had one scene where someone was being, bigoted towards the two girls' relationship, and somebody stepped in to interfere, but that was more to represent the relationship between the guy stepping in and standing up for her. So there was that, but there really wasn't a lot of heavy-handedness with the messaging throughout the game. There were a couple instances where I was like, okay, this is ridiculous, with regards to romance and stuff, but again, that's just because it was romance, and I don't think people are playing this game for romantic scenes. It's a zombie survival thing with a story about, characters trying to survive and stuff. Don't think a whole lot of people are invested in these characters' romantic relationships, but is what it is. So to calm all the people on the right who haven't, and I don't agree with, a lot of the things. There's so many things in this game I wouldn't agree with. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with, stealing and brutally murdering people. There's so many things I don't agree with, but it's you're not making these choices. It's the game developers telling the story of these people, and you're just controlling parts of it as you go along, okay? And you see it in movies and TV shows all the time, and if you don't like it, roll your eyes, move on. They're not really preaching it at you in this game, just to clear that up. Now, for the other side, because this is where it just gets ridiculous. So you would think, people are arguing their characters aren't represented enough in games. You hear this all the time, blah, blah, we're upset. Our characters aren't being represented. There's not such and such and such this person, so I don't feel represented in the game. Okay, you take a game where people get attached to characters, and then you go to the second one, the sequel. You're not creating your own separate game. You're going to a sequel, and you completely, switch up who you're playing. I'm trying not to give too many spoilers here. There will be minor ones throughout, but not anything major. So if you want to go ahead and leave, I would do that now just in case you don't want to hear anything. I'll try to keep it as vague as possible. But you go into the second game and you're playing as some other characters, new ones are introduced, and you have to, deal with this new set of characters. And you're switching that up from the first game. Obviously, some people aren't going to like that just because it's different than what they were used to on the first one. It's not an entirely new game. But anyway, you would think that people would be happy, There's a LGBTQ, LMNOP, whatever character as like the headliner of the game. There's a trans character in the game, all this stuff. But no, people aren't happy on the left. Let's see why some of them are not happy. This first one says, The Last of Us Part 2's queer representation is groundbreaking, but is it enough? Oh, we should have known. It's not going to be enough. You can't just have it. It's got to be, the message has to be preached. That's what I'm saying. If you have it in your game and you don't preach the message, you either get people mad on one side it wasn't preached enough, or people on the other side who thought it was in there too much. They can't win by having it in, I don't think. So they say, what does it mean to be represented? It's not just seeing your own face or desires on a screen. Being told implicitly there is value in your story. Representation is about who makes these depictions and who profits from them. We, all of us, should not simply be seen but understood in video games, as in all media that has grown and warped under our culture of prejudice. True representation can be hard to come by. Oh my goodness. So they talk about how The Last of Us is a sequel, it depicts queer characters, bisexual woman, transgender character, all that stuff. Yeah, it's all in there. They say it's a complicated game, and review scores do not paint the whole picture. The game has people divided. That's what we were talking about. Part 2 dodges some of the stereotypes that often plague queer narratives, but is still a story of immense pain and suffering inflicted all too often on queer characters. Hold on a second. The entire first game and the entire second game are all about pain and suffering, period. It's people living through an apocalyptic event where other people are trying to kill your characters the whole time, and where there's infected people trying to kill your characters the whole time, and people are brutally murdered the entire time. And the game doesn't just do that to queer. What do you think you're going to get in a game about surviving an apocalyptic event? Do you think that everyone is going to be brutally murdered and killed except the queer characters and attacked? Everyone is going to suffer and endure pain in these games. And when you make a queer character, as it says here, the headliner of the game, what character in the game often experiences the most suffering? The main character in the game. So I'm really confused about what you want here. You say that the pain is often inflicted on queer characters too often. Well, those are the characters that are in the game. If the characters were straight, then, they would be the ones suffering the most during the game. But you have a variety of characters. They're all going to suffer. It happens to everybody too, so we'll move on from that. But that's just a ridiculous statement. Video games can be squeamish about depicting any sexuality, let alone queer sex. For its part, Last of Us shows enough physical intimacy to believably sell its romances. Again, not what I think people are playing the game for, is to sit there and watch romances on the screen. That's not that enjoyable when you're trying to play a game. Is cagey, however, about labels using words like lesbian or transgender, though there's a homophobic slur that it rears its head later on. Okay. And that's the thing about preaching the message. We obviously see that the main character is a lesbian, that there's a bisexual person, there's a transgender person. We don't need the words to explain it. It's pretty clear, and we can move on knowing that. The whole point is not to make a scene about it, right? Why are you wanting people to make a scene about it? Just move on and let people go through the story. So they talk about when the spoiler-heavy cutscenes were leaked from the game in April, the reaction from right-wing trolls was loud and noxious. A lot of times, though, because the spoilers made it look like they were going to be preaching a message the entire game, that upset people. I told you about the girl they thought was trans that wasn't. So he talks about how LGBTQ players are feeling excited and empowered by the presence of these characters in such a prominent game. The fact that certain gamers are opposing the game, including LGBTQ characters, just shows how important this kind of queer representation is. It's shaking up what closed-minded and toxic people think video games should look like, which helps us see how much we need this change. Okay, first off, I can tell you now, there's many reasons people are mad at this game, and a lot of it came from the leaks, and that's because they only had partial information about the story. A lot of people don't like when you're going into a sequel, completely switching up who your important characters are. But again, it actually ended up being a really good game. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's many reasons people are mad other than the fact that characters are just LGBTQ whatever. If you'd preach the message the entire game, and I think some people out there who haven't played it think, like I said, think that's what happens in the game. Yeah, people are going to be upset. They're going to be like, you just turned a great franchise into a ridiculously woke piece of preachy garbage. But no, that's not what happens, but that is why people are mad. That doesn't mean people are closed-minded, toxic people who can't handle the characters in the game. It's whatever. If they're in the game, they're in the game. We've gone over this. We'll move on. Talks about how games over the past decades have done this. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Then one of the people goes on to say, I'm personally less concerned with what a character is written to identify as and more interested in the studios that hire queer developers and create a culture removed from microaggressions. Okay, so now putting them in the game they don't care. That's not the goal. Now the people making the game need to be meet specific criteria. Whether or not they're qualified, that they need people's specific criteria. They need to have specific sexual orientation or identify as a chair, whatever it is. You're not hiring the right people. They continue. It's more of the same stuff. And they end with, The Last of Us Part 2 queer representation is fine, but it doesn't really support LGBTQ communities or politics. It's just a small gesture from an entertainment company. When we talk about representation, we also need to talk about who makes and who controls representation. By that metric, queer artists and queer creators everywhere, and especially LGBTQ people of color, are struggling to be heard. This is a fictional video game, okay? Taking place in an alternate world where an infection broke out. There's zombies, cities are overrun with nature, and people are killing each other in the streets. Well, I would say none of that's happening, but in light of recent events, actually sounds kind of similar. But in reality, though, none of this stuff is real in the game with regards to that. So it's not anything that's happening right now. I mean, you don't have to have a person that matches every single character, every single event that's happened to create the game. People are creating a story. You don't have to have a survival guy who's traversed the country and almost died 15,000 times throughout his journey to represent and create the character Joel or Ellie. It's ridiculous that we have this to act as a person. Like, you see this with actors. It's called acting. If they don't match exactly the criteria of the person they're portraying, they get attacked and people are offended. It's a game. They really didn't push a message. They put the characters in there that had different beliefs and ideals and preferences, whatever it was. And the characters were there. And people got along. It was fine. The story progressed. Woohoo. It was good. But it's like people want it to be a message, a symbol to those out there that don't like these ideas. I don't agree with a lot of those things, but I don't care if those characters do. If the characters in that game believe what they're doing is right and okay, I'm watching it happen. It's not me. I'm just playing the game that someone has created and watching everything unfold and seeing what happens, like a movie or like a TV show. It's a lot closer to a television show or movie than it is a video game at this point, with the amount of story and cutscenes and everything in it. Of course, the problem extends beyond the games themselves to the platforms that host them. Tech companies and game platforms are continuing their war against queer politics and sexuality. Oh my. We've all given up so much power to just a handful of huge companies, and it will always be in their interest to try to shut out queer creators. Okay, at the end of the day, many problems facing queer gamers and queer creators are rooted in the problems of capitalism. There we go, attack capitalism while we're at it. Oh my goodness. And they go on complaining. They do think we'll continue to see more LGBTQ people represented, but whether those will be candid about the politics of queerness. People don't want to play a video game to hear about the politics of queerness. At least, especially when you take a very popular, game that came out and make a sequel to it that's just about fighting to survive in an apocalypse, and you turn it, and then you take a sequel and turn it all into queer politics. People are going to be mad and hate it. What do you think? If you want to create a game and a series all about queer politics, you go ahead. See how many people buy it and play it. You can't force people to do that. And you're complaining about capitalism. You're essentially saying that the people choosing what they want to play is the problem. Are you kidding me? People play games to enjoy themselves, have a good time, have fun, talk about it with their friends. They don't I really want to get into today's key political issues. I really hope there's a video game on it. Okay, no, that's not what people are out there to do. Maybe a handful, but that's not going to make any money in the gaming market. And obviously that is your issue. You know that's not going to make any money in the gaming market. So then you complain about capitalism because that gives people the freedom to choose what they want to spend their freaking money on and develop. Ugh, it's irritating. So with all of that, it's never enough. It'll never be enough. It'll always be, I want more, I want more, I want more, until everything is about preaching these messages at you. I get it. We get that your characters are LGBTQ. We get that you have a trans character in the game. We understand that. And I don't really care. I want to move on and play the game. I don't know what it is with certain topics, but you see it with other things too. People who are vegan, some people who do CrossFit. It's like, I get that you do that, but you don't have to tell me that you do that 24/7. I get that your characters are queer, as you say. I understand, but I don't need to have a game where I am told that every 5 minutes, and it's a huge point is made of it every 5 minutes. People can deal with other people having different beliefs. We're human beings, we can handle that, you would think. I'll move on, though, because it continues. The Last of Us Part 2 condemned as trauma porn over trans plot. Now, you saw people were complaining about the one character they thought was trans that ended up just being a really strong woman. And then there actually was a little trans character. I say little because it was a kid. I don't know how old. But let's read what they have to say. The new game which released... Okay. Talk about the game. In the game, the trans teenager Lev escapes from a religious cult after he shaves his head and risks being killed by his family. Throughout the game, he experiences physical, emotional, and religious violence and is dead-named on more than one occasion. It's completely unnecessary to dead-name a trans character in a video game in the year 2020. Trans people are not your inspiration for it. First off, not a real person. This is a fictional person made up in a video game. Second, it wasn't just people going around laughing, calling this character Lev his original name Lily. They weren't just laughing at him, calling him a her, going, haha, you used to be a girl named Lily. That is not what was happening. They were, again, minor spoilers, they were fighting off a religious cult that was hanging people up, killing them, and they were psychotic in this game. It was a crazy psycho cult. And the kid, who is a girl, biologically, shaves her head, wants to be a boy. The cult then tries to kill her because that's against their beliefs, so she escapes and goes by Lev, now goes by he. It's just a kid claiming to be a boy, getting away from a cult, okay? Every character that's on your side, the protagonist side, it refers to the kid as Lev, refers to him as he, is nice to the kid. It's the crazy cult people that are trying to kill him, calling him her, calling him Lily, and because that's their belief and that's what it is. It's the fact that they say don't dead name him. Do you think the crazy cult members are going to be like, hey, Lily, oh, I mean Lev, sorry, that's right, you're a boy now, right? Okay, now we'll kill you. No, that's ridiculous. The fact that you're getting upset about dead naming in this video game about a fictional person by crazy people in a cult, it's insane. I'm so effing tired of developers writing trans content without involving trans people. I can't in good faith recommend a game that dead names misgenders and includes violence against a trans child just for drama. Please stop this. We are dying in real life. Holy crap! The trans child was not the only one experiencing violence in the game. In fact, compared to a couple of the other characters, this character actually experienced a moderate amount of violence and loss compared to what happened to especially, I don't know, 5, off the top of my head, 5 other characters in this game. You had people, again, avoiding spoilers, avoiding names, who lost loved ones. That kid did too. But that kid came out with, a fully functioning body, both arms and legs, and no brain damage. Can't say that for all the characters. And there was just so much trauma throughout the game. The game is about suffering and people getting revenge and people dying and people coping with and dealing with it. I'm sorry, I know you want to feel like it's just about the trans kid, but I hate to tell you, it's not. It doesn't revolve around the trans kid. I'm sorry. Too bad. And the fact that you're getting upset, did you want everyone in the game to experience violence but this kid? And people, everyone's fighting, hurting each other, and then this kid walks in and it's like, oh, steer clear of him. Let him go that way. We don't want to hurt him. It's stupid. It's stupid. This is what we're coming to now. We're getting to a point where people are never satisfied. You can never be woke enough. There's always going to be a complaint. And it's whatever. Naughty Dog, the developer of this game, wants to put this in their video game. Fine. Whatever. You do you. Don't preach it at me. If you got a good storyline and it's like an entertaining movie or show, we'll play the game, we'll like it, we'll move on. But, God, we don't need these messages preached at us like these people are advocating for. If you want to do that on your own, that's fine. It's not gonna sell as well as I think, you'd like it to. Because people don't want to be preached at when they're playing a video game. Whatever the message may be. They just want to play the game with their characters. Their characters have whatever experience they have and they move on. It doesn't need to be such heavy-handed focus on that kind of message. But I don't know. I don't know how this kind of stuff will continue to play out with games and movies and TV shows. Obviously, when you see this stuff a lot of times, you're just expecting now. At least I expect when anything of this nature is put into a movie, show, or a game that, oh, here comes the message. They're going to be, preaching this stuff at you. It's almost like cultish the way they preach this stuff at you now. And it's such a relief when it actually doesn't happen that I'm like watching something, just cringing, waiting for them to lay out this message at me. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like a sigh of relief. But yeah, so overall, just to give you a clear picture of what was going on with this game, because like I said, there were people on both sides. Again, while I think the people that were really upset on the right were making their decision and their opinions before they really knew what was going on in the game, it seems like the people on the left know what was going on in the game, and they're very upset that it didn't go far enough. So it is what it is. There you have it. If you like games and you like the first one, definitely worth playing. It's an entertaining storyline, very good. The way it played out was very good, but this isn't a gaming channel or anything like that. So I just wanted to address some of the issues that were in there. Thank you all for tuning in. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe so you're notified when we come out with more content, and we will see you all in the next segment. You guys have a good one.